The holiday season reminds us that it's a time of giving back to those less fortunate or in need of some assistance. Our next guest has a few suggestions on how we can make that happen. Joining us now, Dorothy Engelman. She's Executive Director of GetInvolved.ca and the founder of it as well, and we're really happy to have you back here at TVO.
Thank you.
And I should say, it's a real homecoming for you.
Absolutely.
How many years you work here?
On and off, maybe 6 or 7 years, but I've really kind of partnered with TVO over the last 20 years.
You feel like part of the furniture, and I say that in the nicest way.
I do indeed. Hopefully not too old.
Let's talk about the website, because we talked about,
Right.
I want to just get everybody up to speed on
Sure.
that. You do something called GetInvolved.ca.
Yes.
We're going to roll some pictures here,
Okay.
and you can speak over those and tell us about the
Great.
website.
Okay. So this is matching with opportunities. You go and you look and you see, what am I passionate about? You choose an area, you look at your skills, and then you match it with a postal code, you get matched, and then you get matched with a number of opportunities. Then you can search through those opportunities and have the opportunity to then engage with organizations in a variety of different areas of the country to get involved doing all different kinds of things based on your skills and your interests.
And I presume you've done it this way because it answers the first question that most people have, which is, I want to get involved, but I have no idea where to start.
Exactly, where to get started. So I think the thing is that when we think about getting involved, there's all different kinds of ways that we do it. And I think technology has really changed the way that we now engage with volunteering. People are starting to engage in social media and do things like, for example, when you think about Facebook, Facebook, we used to share photographs, we used to share family anecdotes, a lot of very social information. Now when you look at your newsfeed, you see people engaged in things they're passionate about. They're sharing stories about things that they do. They're going for a run to raise money for cancer. They care about some sort of piece of activism going on halfway around the world or in their backyard. And so I think technology has started to drive that. So we thought a platform where you could bring together 2,400 organizations from across Canada, allow them a place to sort of sift through virtual volunteers or volunteers on the ground and find people that could engage in all different kinds of activities using their skills and expertise, or perhaps being able to gain some new skills and expertise by getting involved in volunteering.
Now, there are lots of organizations, as you just pointed out, that try to match people up.
Yeah.
What's different about what you do at GetInvolved.ca?
I think that the matching that we're trying to do is to try to give people a sense of what are the skills that perhaps I could gain, what are the skills that perhaps I could take forward and engage with organizations on issues that I really, really care about. And I think that the movement towards virtual volunteering, which I think is one of the most exciting sort of areas of volunteering? Virtual volunteering, volunteering from your home for someone halfway around the world. For example, we have school teachers that are teaching English to kids over Skype in developing countries. We have people that are developing websites, doing graphics, building research tools, doing communication plans. All kinds of things can be done at a distance. And this helps organizations that are stressed with limited resources. So all of a sudden, you don't have to have someone managing that volunteer. You don't have to have a computer. You don't have to even have a physical space. All of a sudden, you can extend yourself through technology around the world or even just across the street, but you can do it from your own backyard.
Yeah, and I can attest that. I know one that I found out about by going on your website was Write a Soldier.
Right.
And I remember for a while I started writing letters to soldiers in Afghanistan, which I would not
Exactly.
have found out about had I not
Right.
clicked on your site. Let's go to StatsCan here. Here are some numbers from Statistics Canada on Canadian volunteers. And apparently, according to StatsCan, 47% of Canadians volunteer their time. That's 13.3 million Canadians, and that adds up to 2.1 billion hours of volunteering annually. 1.1 billion of those hours were given, however, by 10% of all volunteers. So basically 10% doing half the volunteering. What do those numbers tell you?
Well, I think first of all, it's about half the amount of people that actually engage in donations. So in Canada, we have like 24 million Canadians donating about $10 billion. But if you look at the time that people are donating and you break it down by demographics, what's really interesting is when we think about millennials, a lot of people say they're not engaged. But in fact, millennials are, I think they're at 54%. So they're engaged in volunteering more than, say, the boomers or the traditional volunteers that we used to think of.
Just in a different way, maybe.
Absolutely in a different way. In terms of the people doing a lion's share of the work, I'm hoping to see that trend changing. I think it's changing based on how people are volunteering and how people are giving back. When we think about the word volunteering, volunteering is one word, pro bono. giving your professional skills and services, working as a board member, being a community manager, volunteering at your school, all of these different ways that people are engaging, I think are what are changing the face of volunteering, because we have some stresses, right? We have economic stresses and we have unemployment. And we have a group of young people that are looking for references, networking, and they need to skill build. And
Experience.
one of the greatest ways they can do that is through interning or volunteering. And I think those are some of the trends that are seeing a sort of a shift in some of those numbers.
So if you try to explain to us what the difference is between somebody who's, say, 60 and volunteers versus the millennials,
Right.
are they involved in a completely different experience?
I think to a certain extent they are. I mean, when I think about the group, say between 54 and 65, say the boomer population, what they tend to do is they tend to use their professional expertise. So they may sit on boards, they may donate their services. They also want to do very project-based work because they want to see a real outcome out of the work that they do. They're very stressed for time often, and what they want to do is they want to get in, do something very useful, and get out. Whereas I think with millennials, you're looking at kids who are saying, hey, I'm really interested in the environment. Perhaps that's where I'd like to pursue my career. So why not do some volunteer work for an environmental organization? Or they're interested in social services. So I think it's kind of a way of testing some of the skills that they want to build or some of the professions that they may want to pursue. But
those numbers that we just brought up suggest that while half the people are volunteering, half aren't.
Right.
And while there's 2 billion hours of volunteering out there, 10% of the people are doing half of it, which suggests 90% of the people are. So, I guess the question is, what prevents more people from getting involved in this?
I think that what prevents people is kind of this perception that volunteering is too difficult to do, that they don't have time to volunteer. And I think in some of the companies that I've worked with where they do a lot of group volunteering, when you talk to people in large corporations who have very busy lives, they'll say that once they started volunteering, they just kind of kept doing it, and they realized how easy it was to get started. And I think for a lot of people, they're stressed by family pressures and financial pressures, and they just think that giving back is something that they can't fit into their day. But what I would suggest is that I think what happens is that once you do start to volunteer, I think it opens up your world. I think it exposes you to all kinds of new networks of people. And for example, myself, I sit on a board for an organization called Wellspring, which is providing amazing services to all kinds of people. On that board, I sit with people who have very different skill sets than I do. I sit with presidents of banks and people who work in management consulting. I sit with lawyers. And my skill is marketing and communications and video production, so that's what I bring to the table. But over the course of the last few years, I've learned enormous amounts about governance and financial planning, things that have helped me with my own business and building my business to become a more successful business. So I think if you look at it as an investment in your skills and in your future, if you look at it as something that's value added, if you look at it as something for you, I think that perhaps you'll see that you can find the time, because the time will be very valuable moving forward.
I hear you saying that, but at the same time, I hear our premier use this expression all the time where he says people are leading these just-in-time lifestyles, where you are literally, getting the kids off school, then you're going to work, then you're, maybe doing the second shift.
Right.
For people for whom their life is broken up into, say, 15-minute to 30-minute chunks,
right,
where just the thought of trying to organize themselves into some kind of volunteering experience, it's a bit much for some of them,
Yeah.
What's the one thing you could say that would sort of get them over that hump?
I think a lot of people, the entry point, find the entry point that makes sense for you. So I sort of, in the experience of doing Get Involved as a television series on TVO, we found that people kind of do volunteering for a variety of things. They do it to skill build. So if you're looking to skill build, look at it from that perspective. People do it as new Canadians to integrate into their community. So all of a sudden, we have people from around the world applying for virtual volunteer opportunities here in Toronto or in Canada to be able to get a resume building piece or a reference for being able to be employable once they come to Canada. So there's a lot of different reasons why people get involved. There's also kind of this search for meaning that I think a lot of people are looking for. When you have 15-minute increments of your life broken down into all these little chunks, wouldn't it be nice to have one place where it's a little bit more expansive, one place that gives you something a little bit more than making that next lunch or driving that kid to hockey? I think But driving that kid to hockey is a form of volunteering, right? If you're carpooling with other people and coaching.
If you're coaching, yeah.
Yeah. So find the thing that you're passionate about. Find the thing that you love. Find the skill that you want to acquire. Think about the thing you want to learn about. And I think volunteering, I think volunteering can provide you with so much richness in your life. And in fact, you know, one less football game a week, and you'd be able to volunteer 150 hours a year, right?
One less football game, meaning you're not a couch potato for 3 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah,
Take that time for more use.
Absolutely.
Okay, understand.
Absolutely.
Volunteering today versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago, different or the same?
Very different.
How so?
Very different. There used to be something called the occasional volunteer. You know, the person who would go once a week on a Wednesday from 4 to 6 and maybe sit at a desk. Somebody that would go and work on an event once a year. People would kind of have it scheduled into their lives. Now what we find is that people are doing much more project-based kind of volunteering, something where they go in, they go out, and they kind of get done with it quickly. People want to have a sense of accomplishment when they volunteer. And I think it used to be that you'd look at your volunteering life as something that you're committing a certain amount of time over a long period of time to an organization. Now I think people look at it as a piece of their value proposition. What am I going to get out of this experience? And so people go in and out of these different experiences in order to kind of enhance their skills or to connect to their community.
Got some more stats for you here. 65% of Canadians who attend weekly religious services volunteer, 65%, compared to 44% of people who volunteer who don't attend a religious service. So do we infer from that that religious people really are nicer?
I assume we could, yes. I think when you think about, when you think about attending religious ceremonies, or when you think about being engaged with whatever faith-based organization you're part of, what are you doing? You're connecting with other people from your community. Once you do that, you see the need. You see the need of those that perhaps don't have as much as you do. You see the need around particular issues in your community, and I think that it makes sense that stat would be, relevant today.
Let me also, though, flip that around and say we get a lot of people, I guess, or we hear a lot of stories of people who think that because they went online and clicked on like on a Facebook page,
right,
they're involved in political activism
right,
now.
They're engaged.
They're engaged.
Right.
No, they're not. I mean, let's be honest. No, they're not. Are
right.
they?
Well, I mean, levels.
I mean, at a very superficial level, maybe. But
absolutely, and I think it is superficial. But I do think that that engagement, that's something that everyone's looking to do, whether it's a not-for-profit organization, whether it's a brand, whether it's TVO. What we want to do is we want to get people engaged with the issues that we care about. And you do it very well on the agenda. And of course, what are you doing? You're reaching out online. You're using these online tools to create engagement. When social media started, really in 2005, 2006, I did a series about social media and social change, and everybody thought I was crazy. Social media and social change. And then what did we see? We saw the Arab Spring. We saw this ability to be able to bring people together, and crowdsourcing, which is becoming an incredibly powerful tool for everything from science-based organizations like NASA, where they say to wannabe astronomers around the world, hey, we need to map Mars. Can you take this little piece? All of a sudden, you've got 1,000 people doing the work that only they could really afford, say, 10 people to employ to do that. So this ability to use technology to reach out and to bring people together, to pull the skills and expertise of all these best practices and all these people that want to engage in an issue, I think is very, very powerful.
So maybe we need some new labels here, because I know, I guess for some people, the word volunteer might mean your grandmother sitting at home knitting socks that she's going to give away to the lower income people. You talk about an opportunity to enhance your skills or your networking or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do we need a new word here?
I think there's a lot of different new words. And I think what you have to think about, if you're trying to engage volunteers, or if you want to think about volunteering, I think you need to use different language for different people. If you're talking to a lawyer, asking them to be a board member, that's probably the way to talk to the lawyer.
Right up their alley.
Or if you're talking to an accountant, could you donate your professional services? If you're talking to a young person, you say, I'd love you to intern for us. And I think it's just about using the right language for the right age group and talking to people in a way that kind of is meaningful to them. So if you're an organization that extends its work abroad, so voluntourism, you know, that
Voluntourism.
Voluntourism is something that's
You
happening.
know what we hear around here all the time?
What?
Voluntold.
Voluntold. Yeah, no.
You're volunteering, but you're being voluntold to do this.
Well, I don't think that that's kind of the right approach to take. But
And I'm only being sort of facetious here.
you are.
Let me just, in our last minute here, finish up with this. The whole world, I guess in general, and the economy in particular, I'm guessing would fall apart if we didn't rely, I mean, with all of the volunteer hours, or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
disappeared tomorrow, we would be in a heap of trouble, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it's social capital, right? I mean, it's almost like an economic stimulus plan, if you think about it, for organizations. And that's what social service organizations and not-for-profits are in our community. They fill the gaps. And volunteers can help to fill those gaps and enhance the power of those organizations and make them more powerful by donating their time, their skills, and their expertise. I always find that when I'm looking for help from somebody, if I say to them, I need your skill and I need your expertise, I don't say, I need you to volunteer. If I'm talking to a young person and they need to be mentored, they ask me, hey, can I have a cup of coffee? They don't say, hey, would you volunteer 5 minutes of your time?
It's all in the sale, isn't it?
It's all about how we talk. And you know what? All of us want to have value. All of us want to provide value. All of us want to bring value to our society. And so I think if you can look at it as a value proposition, which is, you know, a very capitalist kind of way of looking at it, I think it's a whole new way to talk to individuals, companies, corporations, and individuals about the value that we can all bring through our social capital.
Good stuff. So we invite everyone to go to getinvolved.ca
Yes.
and find their entry point.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. That's Dorothy Engelman.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.